Welcome to God Talk. Thank you for being with me this Sunday. It's actually a very hopeful day. Pope says Ukraine should have the courage of the white flag of negotiations. It's actually stunning to me that the woke Pope has awakened to his real duty on earth, which is to seek peace and to end this insane war where well over 500,000 to 600,000 Ukrainian men have been turned into fertilizer. Hundreds of thousands of Russians turned into fertilizer, cities destroyed. Now, before I continue, you must understand that I've been as critical of this woke Pope as anyone in the media, perhaps more so, going all the way back to my book, Government Zero, where I define him as Lenin's Pope. He is to the left of everyone on virtually everything, whether it be sexual behavior, whether it be the lie about global warming. He's always to the left of center. Suddenly, I read Pope says Ukraine should have courage of the white flag of negotiations. And wait until you hear what the left suddenly says about their favorite Pope. He is no longer their favorite Pope. And I'm going to read you the story in a moment. But first, I'm going to read you a prayer on this morning, because peace is the only thing we should all be praying for every minute. We are close to World War III. We've been provoking the bear, the idiots running this country and running France and running the UK and running the EU, most of whom have never been punched in the nose, are calling for war with Russia. These are psychopathic, drug-addicted fools who could destroy the whole world. So finally, the Pope steps up and says, no. Pope says Ukraine should have the courage of the white flag of negotiations. Of course, it didn't go well with Zalinsky. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be his own treasure out of all peoples that are upon the face of the earth. Deuteronomy 7:6. So those of us who understand that there's a burden of duty, whether it be audio, video, or in other ways, those who fight on the battlefield, of course, are the bravest and most important. So I see the Pope finally, at his late stage, finally woke to his job. Pope Francis has said in an interview that Ukraine should have what he calls the courage of, quote, the white flag, and negotiate an end to the war with Russia that followed Moscow's full-scale invasion 2 years ago and that has killed tens of thousands. Tens of thousands is the biggest lie of all. I told you the real numbers are probably 600,000 Ukrainian. An entire generation of men have been wiped out. 9 million Ukrainians have fled the country. The country is decimated. There is no Ukraine anymore. They have suffered more than any country on earth since World War II. The Pope recognizes that this provocation of Sweden, listen to how crazy Biden and his fellow maniacs are. They goaded Sweden into joining NATO. And Sweden has abandoned its neutrality that goes back almost 100 years under your boy Biden, the Democrat, the petty dictator Biden. Francis made his comments in an interview recorded last month with Swiss broadcaster RSI well before Friday's latest offer by Turkish President Erdogan to host a summit between Ukraine and Russia to end the war. Now look at this. Here you have the head of the Catholic Church, a man who oversees hundreds of millions of people who worship his every word. And you have Erdogan, who has been demonized as a fanatical, evil Muslim trying to seek peace, while Biden and his minions of psychotics seek war. Of course, Zelensky rejected it. Erdogan made the fresh offer after a meeting in Istanbul with his Ukrainian counterpart, Zalinsky. Zelensky has said while he wants peace, he will not give up any territory. Zelensky is just a mouthpiece for the Azov battalion, and it's Zelensky who right now is just a mouthpiece for the Azov battalion. The Ukrainian leaders, he's just not a leader. I must tell you who Zelensky is once again. Zalinsky ran as a peacenik, as a peace candidate, as a vulgar comedian. Do I have to say play the piano with his penis again? It's not a laugh line anymore. So Zalinsky runs on a peace platform saying he will not join NATO. He will not provoke Russia. He doesn't want war. He wants peace. And the Ukrainians, who are tired of war, elect him in a landslide. Then he turns around and he starts the situation, gets out of hand, and now we're at a point of World War III. In the interview, Pope Francis was asked for his position on a debate between those who say Ukraine should give up as it has not been able to repel Russian forces, and those who say doing so would legitimize actions by the strongest party. The interviewer used the term white flag in the question. Francis answered this way. He said, "It is one interpretation that is true," according to an advanced transcript of the interview and a partial video made available to Reuters on Saturday. It's going to be broadcast March 20th as part of a new cultural program. Francis added, "But I think that the strongest one is the one who looks at the situation, thinks about the people, and has the courage of the white flag, and negotiates," adding that talks should take place with the help of international powers. Francis added, the word negotiate is a courageous word. When you see that, you are defeated. The things are not going well. You have to have the courage to negotiate, Francis said. Okay, he's right. What do we have to see? Ukraine turned into total rubble like Berlin after World War II? It is believed to be the first time Francis has used terms such as white flag or defeated and discussed in the Ukraine war, although he has spoken in the past about the need for negotiations. Why don't you tell that to all the good liberals in the Biden administration, or not liberals at all? They're warmongering psychotic hawks of the worst kind. In a statement, Vatican spokesman Matteo Bruni said the Pope had picked up on the term white flag spoken by the interviewer and used it to indicate a stop to hostilities, and a truce achieved with the courage of negotiations. Who would disagree with this other than the arms manufacturers and psychotic women who love abortion here in America, who like killing things? Last year, the 87-year-old Pope sent the peace envoy, Italian Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, to Kiev, Moscow, and Washington to sound out leaders in those countries. But it was Biden who nixed the peace deal, the puppet. Francis went on to say, one may feel shame in negotiating, but how many dead will the war end up with? One should negotiate in time, find a country that can be a mediator, Francis said, mentioning Turkey among the countries that had offered to be so. Francis went on, do not be ashamed of negotiating before things get worse, said Francis, who has made hundreds of appeals for what he calls martyred Ukraine. Asked if he was willing to mediate, Francis said, I am here. God bless him. God bless the Pope. In another part of the interview, speaking of the war between Israel and Hamas, Francis said, negotiating is never a surrender. So he's become a man of peace. The Pope is correct. I don't care how many times I've disagreed with his policies. I don't care how many times I've said he's a hypocrite or said that he's Lenin's Pope. Now he's 100% correct. Last month, Zalinsky lied when he said that 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed, which is one of the greatest lies in the history of the world. For Zalinsky to even say 31,000 have been killed, which is an enormous number, was admitting defeat, admitting that it's around 500,000 to 600,000, according to the best sources I can find, based on satellite photos of graveyards in Ukraine and elsewhere. Tens of thousands of poor Ukrainians killed and driven out of their homes. Infrastructure destroyed. 9 million Ukrainians driven out of the country, fleeing war. Men escaping being conscripted. It's frightening. It's an amazing thing to see this. Then, of course, this was said, published on March 9th, and then on March 10th, it's updated. Francis says Ukraine should consider negotiating an end to war. It's a similar broadcast, a similar story. The Pope also reminded people that some countries have offered to act as mediators in the conflict, mentioning Turkey. Now we see updates here. Here comes CNN, the warmongering phony liberals. I want you to think about CNN and these disgusting human beings who pose as progressives and liberals. They're warmongering scum of the worst kind. Toilet scum. Listen to CNN's headline, not peace. How can you people call yourself liberals when you back war and hatred? Pope sparks anger after saying Ukraine should have the courage of the white flag. That's CNN's headline. I swear to God. Pope Francis has sparked anger after saying Ukraine should have the courage of the white flag and negotiate to end the war in Russia. Can you believe this? That CNN is calling for more war? Of course you should believe it. I've been trying to tell you who they are. You think Wolfie Blitzer, the Jewish grandfather, is a nice guy? He is toilet scum. Jake Tapper is toilet scum. These are evil personified because they pretend to be good, nice guys when they're warmongering vermin. Ukraine is destroyed. It's exhausted. They've suffered enough. And what did the EU say? Run by the psychotic lesbian feminists who have driven men into the underground? Alexandra Valkenburg, the head of the EU delegation to the Holy See, said on X on Sunday, Russia started an illegal and unjustified war against Ukraine 2 years ago, said the radical feminist, and can end this war immediately by respecting Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. That's the official line of the EU, the witches, and the warlocks in France, in US, in UK, and in the West in general. The same ones who have destroyed America's soul are calling for more war. It's astounding to me. Here's Erdogan, who has been vilified in the American media, offers to host Ukraine-Russia peace talks. There's not much more I have to say about this. It's all amazing news. It's the biggest story there is. Turkey's Erdogan offers to host Ukraine-Russia peace talks. So what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Will you think the Pope will have sway over the bloodshed? Borders, language, and culture. The Pope has tried to erase the borders and the language and culture of all Western nations. And here he is calling for peace finally. He saved his reputation at the end of the day. Swedes were never asked if they wanted to join NATO. There was no vote in Sweden. A few fanatical perverts, drug-addicted perverts in Sweden did this by fiat, by decree. They took a neutral country, a country called Sweden, that had been neutral even during the war against Hitler. They were neutral in World War II. Think about what Biden has done to the world order, how psychotic he is. That wooden liar, that psychotic, pathological liar. Borders, language, and culture. You know, when this is over, people like Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper and these warmongering bastards should be held up on war crimes trials. There should be a war crimes trial for those in the media who have egged on war and death. War crimes trials. War crimes trials. Peace is patriotic, my friends. There's nothing more I have to say right now. This is the entire God talk. I didn't really want to do this today, but I felt obliged to do this today. When I see that the Pope, in the last phase of his political career, because he's a political figure, should have the courage of the white flag of negotiations, I said, I must speak with my audience. War means death. This is not what you may think it is. He said, the courage of the white flag. If you see two kids in a schoolyard fighting, and then one gets the upper hand over the other one, and he's bashing the kid's head against the ground, smashing the kid's head against the pavement, what would you do? You tell a kid on the pavement to keep fighting what Biden's doing? That wooden liar, That pathological wooden liar tells the kid on the bottom to keep fighting while his head's being bloodied on the pavement. Or you tell a kid to say, stop, I want to have peace. Let's end this right now. Even though the bully was wrong, if you want to call it that, and there's a lot of ambivalence about whether Russia was really goaded into this attack, by the way, because this goes back to John McCain and Victoria Nuland. And incidentally, Nuland was fired last week by Biden inside the State Department. She is one of the chief architects of the Russia-Ukraine war, but that would require some knowledge and going back to 2014 and the Maidan Revolution. And John McCain, the warmonger, the psychotic John McCain, and her. You need to know a little of the history to know anything about what you're talking about. So the Pope steps up. My headline's very clear. And I leave you with these thoughts. Again, if you want to celebrate with me today, just click the subscribe button, whatever it is. It's not even on here anymore. There used to be something on the screen that said subscribe or hit the like button or whatever. No, subscribe. We want to make 50,000. I don't know how many we have right now. I hope you've enjoyed today's God Talk. I try to do one every Sunday for you. I want to just go to my channel right now and see what. Last night I did the Oscars Suck, Here is Art, the lucky one. It was really a good one. But now you have a new live called God Talk, Woke Pope Awakens, tells Ukraine to wave the white flag. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your loyalty very much. Remember, I have no network behind me. I don't buy subscriptions. I don't go on Facebook and pay for additional followers. I don't do it on Twitter. I'm a one-man band, and my loyal audience is enough for me. I've been blessed by God, who has given me this ability to keep going on with strength, vigor, and intellect for the good of mankind. And I thank God for everything I have. I hope you do too. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Michael Savage. With God's will and your listenership, you will see my podcasts on Tuesdays and Fridays, wherever podcasts are found. And I get the opportunity with my podcast to speak to the smartest people of my generation, the smartest people some of them I never heard of. They have no promotion. You don't know who they are. They're brilliant people. It's wonderful. We don't have the big name guests. We don't get the Oscars people. We get the real people, the smart ones that you never see. Thank you for listening. I'm Michael Savage.